All right, Greg, go for it.
I'm gonna do Repo Man
Hell yeah.
with the young Emilio Estevez, and it's kind of cool because it was I first saw this movie with my dad when I was like a kid because I would like to watch like old sci-fi stuff, because I was obsessed with like the first Terminator movie. And I remember he let me watch like the first Mad Max film. We'd go like to whatever like Blockbuster and rent them. And then I was kind of like really I like these types of movies. And my dad has like zero knowledge of punk rock music, but for some reason like he was a fan of Repo Man. It's just such like a kind of crazy cult movie. He's like into cult flicks. So I remember we took it home, and just the soundtrack of Repo Man alone, you have like Circle Jerk, you have ST, and there's all sorts of
Fear, Black Flag, The Plugs.
Yeah, and there's like all sorts of just like SoCal punk and hardcore throughout the entire film, and and it's such like a trippy flick of just him being the young punk, but him still having that like, oh, I'm bored, but I still want to like live fast as fuck and like do ridiculous shit. I'm gonna get into like being a repo dude, and just how totally off the rails the story goes, to where like he just gets in a fucking car that's got all this alien shit they're looking for, and they just kind of like float off. Like, I love it. I love how just like that shit crazy it is, and just have this total punk rock vibe the entire time. But it works with just how absurd the story is. And I just think it's cool. And it was kind of like my kind of first introduction into, some of like the harder stuff,
Yeah, it's got institutionalized on it.
Yeah, and like I remember too, because when I saw this movie and I'm like a kid, and this got to be in like the late '90s. You like I was just only, I only knew like your really kind of big, accessible like Green Day Rancid kind of stuff. So then even hearing like some of this more like aggressive sounding shit, you're like, oh, what is this? Like just the scene where they're just like slamming in an alley, like is just like pretty. This is a cool scene to watch. That and this fucking lines per day in that fucking flick too. So, so that's what. So definitely in my top 5 of like just movies in the punk rock sphere.
I'm glad someone had it.
So. Yeah, it's sick. I love the opening of the trunk and turn it into a skeleton.
Yeah,
so sick.
Yeah, I mean it's cult classic. It's a great movie, plus amazing soundtrack.
It's one of those ones that when you see it in a soundtrack bin, you're psyched because I mean you already have it, but you're like, oh, someone's gonna come up.
Yeah, for sure. So Daniel?
Yeah, I mean it's 2 of the best lines just to finish it is Later Days, and then that's always a great one. And then the other one is just let's go do some crime.
Yeah, man. All right, Daniel.
Okay, so I have. I think I'm going to go for number 5, Sid and Nancy. Oh, Gary Oldman playing Sid Vicious, doing like an unbelievable job, and Chloe Webb, I think her last name is, doing like making Nancy Spungen like come to life completely, like from all the footage you see of like Nancy yelling at Sid when he's nodding off in those interview footages and things like that. Like she nails what Nancy is like, and I think it not being like 100% accurate makes it cooler because they have like little bits where they can put things in, and then there's just so many amazing like scenes and lines that come from it because I've seen it probably like 100 times. But like when Sid and Nancy are like wasted in Paris and they roll up on that dude and he's got the girlfriend with the crazy like headgear braces that go around her head, and Sid like just smashes the thing. He's like, "Oh, that guy's gonna make someone so much money." Like,
it's funny that you bring this up because I have my 5 flicks and then 2 honorable mentions, and 2 that I absolutely fucking hated. And Sid and Nancy, I hated this movie, but I also watched it when I was like, I don't know, fucking 13 or something. So I think I need to watch it again because I remember just being super into Sex Pistols, which when I get back, my next thing I'll talk about this. But I remember watching this flick and I was like, oh, sick, they made a movie about this. And maybe I don't know. I hated it for some reason, but maybe I need to rewatch it.
I think you should
appreciate it now.
I think you should because it's rad, and the way they, they have the like Bromley contingent, like punks in there. They have like the one of the best lines in the whole thing is where the black dude in their crew like quits being punk. He goes, "I don't want to be punk no more. I want to be a rude boy like my dad." And he goes off and he comes back and he's fully like
walked out, right?
Yeah. And I don't know. I really like it. The guy who plays Johnny Rotten bugs me, so that might be one of the things you don't like.
Well, they
Gary Oldman does crush it with Sid. Like he does a great job of being Sid for sure. But that's what back me. I was like, ew, I hate this Johnny Rotten fucking bitch.
They originally wanted Daniel Day-Lewis
to be Johnny or to be Sid.
To be Sid.
Damn,
I could see him being great, but Gary Oldman knocks it out the park. Yeah. Like it's amazing. But the girl who plays Nancy is the real star of the show because she is like she makes you actually feel for her occasionally, but she's so annoying, and she captures what it's like to be that, the typical person who drags someone down into drugs and whatnot.
I think maybe that's why I hated the flick so much because it does such a good job of showing like just how trash they were, and it kind of like ruined my maybe like little hero view of them, thinking that they were like super cool, you know, and then just seeing how like annoying and just fucking like I mean, at the end of the day, he was just a nihilistic junkie. Like he was like maybe kind of just getting like a real dosage of that reality. Like, no, this is like where this eventually leads them to. So I think I need to rewatch it.
Yeah, I'd recommend it.
And the Indian's a real pick me up.
It's cool and artistic the way they do it, like him overdosing and kind of making out in an alley as like showing him going off. I don't know. It's some good choices. Alex Cox, who directed it, has done some other good films too.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's my number 5.
Cool. Also in heroin related death, I'm going with G.G. Allen Hated.
That's on my honorable mention.
All right, this documentary is so fucking good. It's 1993, Todd Phillips, and it's like regardless of the subject matter, it's just shot so well. Like the way it's spliced together, and like this dude went on to do lots of crazy things.
He was just nominated for an Oscar for Joker.
Oh yeah, he did Joker. He did Old School. He did the Hangover movies. Did Borat.
Yep.
So
no, Borat wasn't him.
He did something with Borat. He's involved in it somehow. But
okay.
But yeah, like it's just an insane movie. Like they get so many quotable lines, and and just really paint these guys as characters, you know, and kind of tie the Gigi story together, you know, like saying like, yeah, Gigi Allen, like he never even like smoked weed, and then like one day they put like 10 tabs of acid in his drink, and he's never been the same since. You know, like thanks Merle, you fucking asshole.
Yeah.
You know, and then Gigi's got his little mustache that's like the anti-Hitler, like it's just on the sides, you know. And then Merle's got his stupid like bushy Hitler mustache. Like these guys are just wild. And then you have like Dee Dee Ramone, like tried to play with him for a week and then quit, and just all sorts of stuff. You know, like him doing that. He's like at some university in New York, and he's just like naked on stage, like rubbing a banana on his ass, and then like chucks it at the crowd, like, "You hungry?" You know, like
just smashes that woman in the face. Like,
oh yeah,
God, he's wild.
Yeah, it's wild, and then like you know that footage of him in like the hotel room where it's like he's just like, "I hate you, motherfuckers! I hate you, motherfuckers! I hate you, motherfuckers!" You know, and then they got him on Geraldo, like all sorts of shit. And then, you know, I love that one. Who's the fan? Unk, the guy they interview, and you know, at the end, he's like, "Gigi's not that cool," and he like beats the shit out of himself. Like, I don't know. This documentary is just insane. If you guys haven't seen it, you should see it. Go ahead.
Doesn't it have the footage of the playing at the garage where the dude like has his thumb up Gigi's ass and is walking around with him like there's a tail?
maybe.
Or maybe that's just a separate Gigi thing that I'm like putting two and two together. But yeah, hated when I saw it. Like, you know, you watch it for the same way that you kind of want to watch a horror film. Like, ooh, who is it going to, you know, freak me out? But you also, you know, just love the insanity of it. Like,
yeah, and I love the juxtaposition too of like, you know, that he's rebelling against society and all this, and like then they go back and they like interview like his 4 high school friends like together in that room, and like they're all like super cool guys. Like one guy's like in a leather jacket, they're all smoking a joint and like drinking like Budweiser Talls, and it's like, is this really what you're rebelling against? Like all your buddies are pretty cool dudes, you know? Like they're just hanging out, shooting the shit, you know, like. Maybe that could have been you. You wouldn't have fucking died, you know, all bloated and bummed out. But yeah, it was weird. You know, the first time I ever came across Gigi, I bought this. You know, you used to read magazines about like if you were into heavy metal and shit, and I was from like 5th grade and shit, and I'm an only child, and so like I didn't even have any cousins and shit. So a lot of my life was just spent like alone with my family, and they'd like let me buy a magazine. So I'd buy like. You know, a wrestling magazine or like music magazines and shit. And sometimes like I don't know if it'd be Barnes and Noble or what, like some of those like newsstands, they get deep cuts and you get to go beyond like the hit paraders of the circus. And there was like this one magazine called Rip, and it was like all like death metal and shit. But like Gigi had just died, and they did this whole like dedication in memoriam to him. And it was just like, you know, he's a rock and roller that lived by his own rules and like this and that. And I was like reading it. I was like, oh my God, like what the fuck? You know, when I was like 12, I was like, I got to search this guy down. And then this, is someone running laps or something? It's getting windy out there. Is one of you guys moving around?
No, not me.
Okay. Anyway. But yeah.
It was the ghost of Gigi.
I know. It's like, you talking shit, fool? But
he's shitting on all our little phones.
I know he's all don't talk shit. But yeah, this is great. So many quotables, and it's like really short too. It's like only like an hour, and yeah, everyone should check it out. It's something else.
Yeah, it's fantastic.
Yeah. All right, Greg, number 2.
Just 1 second. You can edit this.
Oh, I'm not editing shit.
Yeah. Back to the Pistols, the Filth and the Fury. That was like another kind of like early punk rock documentary, and that's a documentary on the Sex Pistols. And I think it's just really well done. Even if you like hate the band, I think it's just great because it captures just the start, shows you like a really good screenshot of what England was like at the time, and shows the whole formation. I think it's an excellent documentary. And if you're ever just like curious with the band, I still think it's the best thing that's ever been done about the band as well. And it was kind of like, my first, because, you hear all your kind of like bigger, once again, like Green Day's Offspring or whatever, and then you find like your first either Ramones, Pistols, Clash kind of shit. And I just really liked Sex Pistols. I was just like, this band has like, it's aggression, it's heavy, it's catchy, it's not all these things. So I remember, Hollywood Video, they had it, I rented it. I was just tripping out because, even just finding out like, oh shit, like, yeah, like late, like 70s, the 70s in England was like terrible, like, and showing like the garbage strike and how like that was kind of influencing like all the first wave punks and how they were dressing. So pretty cool. It's definitely my top 5 because I think he just kind of made a cool impact with me, and it was just a great capture of the band and how it started and all the formations of the drama. And it's got that really cool interview of them on the TV show. I think Daniel, what's like the radio host that who's like super drunk, he's interviewing them.
TV host Bill Grundy.
Yeah,
this was the number 1 on my list. The Filth and the Fury. I think it is probably the best music documentary out there.
Yeah, and before you go into it, Daniel, let me just pepper it with a little bit of information here. This is a 2000. It came out in the year 2000, and it's directed by Julian Temple, and he's the same guy that did the Rock and Roll Swindle.
Yeah, but Julian Temple was in their crew. Like half of the footage, the interview footage where they have Sid off to the side interviewing, or Johnny, like it's because Julian Temple like was in their inner sanctum, like making films and things back then. So what he does that makes it like to show, like he uses all the news footage that Greg references, like showing the rubbish strike, and then also he uses footage from Richard III.
Yeah, that's another thing. He's got all that like old footage is really cool.
Well, he uses like that Shakespearean Richard III to show like what an outcast in society, was, and because Johnny Rotten kind of had spinal meningitis and had had to struggle against, being in a coma for a year and being little and weak and stuff like that, that it emboldens that punk side within him. And I think it shows it really well. I mean, I think it's done phenomenally.
Yeah, I think it shows them that they're more than just like, because so many people were like, oh, they weren't a real band, they're a boy band, they were just like put together, and you really see like, no, they were real dudes. I mean, even like Steve Jones is saying like, yeah, they went just literally stole all their gear, like, so it's just a trip.
Well, yeah, like what the thing does great too is it shows like all the quotes from Malcolm McLaren are behind like a fetish like mask because they had the store sex back then, and so they have all the quotes from Malcolm, but then Johnny's like, "You don't invent me, I am me," and it
and just the when they interview Malcolm and he's in all the fetish gear that it's with like his fucking face, like the whole gimp mask shit. And he's just like talking all creepy. Like I remember that was just like such a wild thing to see.
Yeah, I don't know if he's inside the mask. I think it's a directorial choice, but it's so good because that's what makes it so punk is the fact that there's 4 different versions of what the story is. That so each person's like no. But what's really cool is that Johnny Rotten says that he brought all that safety pin and wearing completely ripped up stuff because that's what his clothes were. He brought that to the table, and then they saw how cool he looked, and they made an entire fashion wave because of the way he looked. You know,
totally.
Super cool.
All right, Daniel, do you want to go, or do you want to skip since that was on your list as well?
No, I've got another one plugged in instead anyway.
Okay.
Now, because I was going to cheat and do a twofer, but now I could just have 5.
What a dick.
Next one I'm going to say is not necessarily the best, like the best quality of a film, but seriously so punk and so hilarious and so in my heart is Suburbia.
Which is on my list as well.
All right, great.
Is that your trash pick?
Wait, say again?
Was that your trash pick?
You said
no, that's not my trash pick. That's in my top 5. Suburbia is totally in my top 5.
I'm glad that Repo Man and Suburbia got on here.
Yeah. Well, I mean, think about this, right? Suburbia opens with a girl running away from home. She goes, the car she's in gets a flat tire, and then the baby gets killed by wild dogs.
Yeah, it's fucking absurd. It's just like
right out the gate.
Absurd.
And then let's talk about the first show that has D.I. doing Richard Hung himself.
Footage is great.
So at that show, the character you're supposed to root for, this guy Skinner, you're supposed to root for this kind of crew, goes up to some girl and goes, I want to fuck your brains out if you had a brain. And she goes, oh, fuck you. And his response to that is, well, let me rip all your clothes off in the pit and have the entire scene scream at you and flip you off. Jeez. And you're like, am I supposed to be rooting for the punk guys? Like, it's so crazy. But God, what a fucking amazing movie.
Yeah, it kind of like, you start to feel crazy watching it.
Yeah.
It's like, if you're like somewhat rational, you're like trying to be like, wait, what the fuck? And I don't know if that was intentional. Because like you just said, like your opening scene is like a baby gets eaten by dogs. Like, it's just such like a head trip film. Like, and I mean, the best footage though, hands down, is when fucking TSOL is up there. Like, that to me is just what he's doing, Darker My Love. And he's just like, like he's just so like fucking theatrical. Like, and even them doing like Wash Away, and it's just like the most like it's so like melancholy and happy, but it's just like the most violent like slamming going on. Like,
and while the dude in security gets stabbed in the back.
Yeah, and then what? Skinner's and he's like, some asshole trying to start a fight.
Everyone's gonna be bummed that you didn't do it, Greg. Oh,
another great line though is it's like, "Where's the horse, son? Up your ass."
Oh man, yeah.
It's so funny because it's the cops and the punks that you're supposed to like, which is weird. You know, the cop is being cool to the punks, and it's the like rednecks that are taking the law into their own hands that are the villains. You know, which is it's pretty funny, like of the time, to think that they would paint the cops in a positive light. But it's directed by Penelope Spheris, the person who was behind Decline 1.
Yeah.
Or behind all the Declines, actually. So, like, her able to get access to these shows, like to film the dramatic things at the shows, was pretty rad, you know? It made it somewhat authentic. It made it that you wanted to watch it, you know? Like,
it's 1984, so the footage has got to be 83 or early 84.
Yeah, I'd say 83 for sure. Like on, I don't know, it's really good.
I enjoy it.
I'm all right. Well,
all right.
Who's next?
Back to me, I guess. I'm going with
Cinema Beer Ted.
Cinema Beer Nuts. No, RKL did it's like it's not really a documentary, but it's like a VHS. It came out in, I think, 97 on Epitaph. And it's like footage of, it's mostly like Euro shows from like the late 80s and early 90s, I believe. And it's crazy. It is called, man, I just lost it. But, oh yeah, Still Flailing After All These Beers, 1997. And the footage is just wild because there's no band, like 87, 88. These are like rough years for like punk, I mean, I guess Suffer comes out in 88 and rekindles it a little bit. But like 87 is rough outside of like straight edge hardcore, right? And New York hardcore. But on like the California tip, 87's got to be like one of the worst years. But
well, that's when UC is starting to stare at the sun.
Yeah, and so we can blame them. But RKL puts out Rock and Roll Nightmare that year, and it is like this insane album that's like really the blueprint for what all of like that Epitaph and Fat Record stuff would be. Like at least like the heavy riffing like in punk. And then also like I don't know if we can trace back the do that to them. That's one thing I got to figure out. But they definitely do like they invent like that skip, like where it goes like you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So like that's there, and then just like lots of fingery stuff, and so they're just like this insane band, and this video it captures it, and it's like, wow, this band is really like is insane. It's not like a studio thing. Like it's like them playing and being like even more insane and sounding like so good. And it's amazing. It's awesome that it got documented. And I absolutely love it. It's like mind blowing for punk in 87. And once again, it's called, oh, I just lost it again. Still Flailing After All These Beers. But it's,
and it's like their reactions that you're seeing in the video. But are people even into it?
Yeah, because it's Europe in '87, so like this will toss into another one of my picks. But like yeah, that's like why they're out there. I think is because the scenes are like flailing out here, but you can still be a punk band and go to Europe and like do well. And so like they're playing these like packed rooms and people are slamming and way into it, and like I got to assume that people are also just fucking mind blown. Greg, if that's the album you've never listened to, you should check it out.
Yeah, RKO. Yeah, it's like I definitely familiar just with like RKO bass lines because those have always been. I mean, the band has always had chops.
Yeah,
like out of all of that, like serious skills and abilities.
Totally, but the one that I'm pitching is the one after they leave Mystic. So like their 7-inch on Mystic comes out in 84, I believe, and then the LP Keep Laughing comes out in 85, and then this is the one in 87. I believe it's on Alchemy Records, and Rock and Roll Nightmare. It's just it's mind blowing. I would love, as you're a guy that can play and have chops, I would just love to hear your take on it, like listening to it, like how the fuck do they do all this stuff? It's really insane. And then again, just like I said, for them to capture this in the live setting and show that there's like, no pun intended, but there's no effects going on here. These guys are just like going wild. It's just something else to see. So that is my 3. Moving on, Greg.
Okay, so a lot of people would consider this film absolute dog shit, and maybe some people will be like, "You're fucking including this in your top 5," but there's a reason why I'm including What's Up Rockers in my top 5 punk movies.
What's it called?
What's Up Rockers?
Huh.
It's a Larry Clark film, the guy who did Kids, and it's a good movie. I wouldn't say it's dog shit.
Oh, I mean, I think it's just because it's just like the film premise is like, because he just grabbed just some like East LA punk kids and was like, "You're gonna be in my movie, right?" Like that's pretty much like his actors, and they're like a band, and they just get like all like it's just their journey through fucking LA, and I don't know because like I think it just captures like this breed of like East LA like punker pool with just like no fucking filter, and the movie's just so fucking like dumb, and it's fucking just quotes and like just, like you watch it like to me it's just like why I like it. Like you just put it on with a group of friends and just fucking laugh and clown it because you're also so goddamn used to like play like the kids in these movies, like you know them, like you've gone to the fucking backyard show, you've played it, like you've seen them at fucking like you're on the trolley, you fucking see like 4 or 5 of them, like, and it's just for like a punk rock movie, like I didn't really see, for them to be like, oh, I'm just gonna grab some fucking kids from East Los Angeles and just put them in a flick, and it's just so like it's there and like it's hard to follow. It's just like them getting into like adventure after adventure after adventure. Like one of the best things is like I think it's supposed to be like some guy who's an actor that's like Clint Eastwood. Turn this off if you don't want to hear the spoiler. But like they're like running through the dude's backyard in this like Clint Eastwood style character, like he like shoots and kills one of their dudes, and they all keep going, and then like the next scene is they're like, oh hey, what happened? Like I think he shot him. Oh okay, and they like just don't care. Like they're just like they just fucking keep going, like just like oh. So it's just I don't know, watch it, and then at the end with fucking whatever gangster dude literally like looking at them, kind of like giving them props for being rockers, and then like just shooting like a MAC-10 or a Uzi saying, "What's up, rockers?" He just like shoots into the air. Like
I can't wait to see this, dude. So if it's the guy that did Kids, and if it's that same style and it's what you're describing, like this might be a favorite movie of mine. I'm excited.
Yeah, I mean, I know why people could hate it and like would be like, "Oh, fuck that movie." Like I think it's just like with your experiences with dealing with those types of punks, like
yeah, well,
you're just like, God damn it.
Well, did either of you guys?
Like, I think
did either of you guys like Kids?
It's like a hilarious flick.
Sorry, did either of you guys like Kids?
I love it.
Yeah, and like but Dano, you didn't have like you were never like around people like that, right? Like that reminds me of like everyone I was around like when I was that age. Like it's actually like kind of a sentimental movie.
No, Kids. I mean, I was around lots of people like that. I did my senior year at Mission Bay.
Okay, word.
And there was all kinds of. That's when I moved to America, and then I did my senior year there. But the thing that the What's Up Rockers is doing, it's kind of showing like if you choose to embrace a different culture than what the normal culture coming out of your neighborhood is, how much flack you're getting from your own culture, like the What's Up Rockers. But then at the end, it's kind of like, oh, you're down for your shit. That's cool, you know? But throughout the whole film, they're getting shit for being into kind of like white boy shit coming out of the Latino neighborhood, you know?
Yeah, I mean, I know that is like the deep theme of the movie, but I think it's still like a fucking like you just end up laughing, and you're just like, this fucking movie is so goddamn stupid. Yeah, I feel like you kind of like miss like the theme maybe for it, because I know that is like the deep meaning of it, but yeah, if you haven't seen What's Up Rockers, like give it a shot. I mean, if you're like from Southern California and you haven't seen it, definitely watch it, because you're just gonna be like, holy shit, yeah, they just like, yeah, I went to school with some of these dudes, like you'll get it immediately.
Definitely.
I can't wait. I'm gonna watch it tonight. All right, Daniel.
All right. This is probably the most adjacent of my picks, but this is England. The film more so than the offshoots, which I love as well. But it's happening in 1983 in England, and it focuses on a group of skinheads.
Is this the one where they don't like the Pakistani people?
Well, that's probably every film set in England in the mid 80s.
Okay. I just can't remember if I saw this or not. I think I saw this. Go ahead.
It's Shane Meadows. You must have seen this. It's such a good movie. Like, it's unbelievable, great film. And it's the story of a kid, Sean, whose dad died in the Falklands War, and he is a single-parent family, which in that day and age was not very common. And he's a latchkey kid because his mom is out working while he comes home from school, and he ends up falling in to a gang of like what you would consider kind of traditional skins, but they, it's skins of the day, so they're like going to punk shows as well as liking reggae. And what's interesting is how it shows how the National Front started to court skinheads to like do their bidding and bring them over to being racist. And there's a black skinhead in the gang, and then this guy comes out of jail, and he's very influential in the gang, and he starts believing the National Front bullshit. And I won't spoil anything, but it's a really good film, amazing soundtrack, amazing visuals, like the slow motion scenes of them, like all being just decked, like totally like sussed out, like in all their gear. It's just it's a visual masterpiece. I love it so much.
No, it's definitely, like I said. I mean, it's just like a subculture movie for sure.
Yeah,
and maybe a movie to actually show, the side of skinhead that most skinheads would probably want, like the public to kind of get an idea or like kind of catch the vibe of it, instead of every, like instead of American History X, type deal, or any type of like, this is a skinhead movie and it's just going to be like, Nazi shit. So, and just to, actually, for the first half of the film, capture like the style, the music, so definitely for like a mainstream audience, because the film's just a really good film, to where if you're just a film guy or a film person, you're gonna watch it. You might not know shit about any of that, and then that might kind of be like, oh, wait a minute, like this is different than the normal skinhead film that I would see, which is like them trying to blow up a synagogue or something. Like, so, and then just for it to be a total like not American take of it as well, like it's pretty much true. I mean, it's like the guy's personal story, or pretty much based off of it, right?
Yeah, Shane Meadows, the director, was a young skinhead in the early 80s, and
Yeah, so he's able to like capture that and show like why it was appealing for him and like other. I mean, I think it was just like one of the first movies that actually had like a huge mainstream audience see it. That showed a different side to the subculture.
It's got Al Capone from Boardwalk Empire.
Yeah, and
yep, Stephen Graham.
He's a fucking phenomenal actor as well.
Yeah, he's the one that gets out of jail and is very influential. It went on to be. So this is set in 1983. Then they did This Is England.
86?
84, 86. No, This Is England 86, and This Is England 88, and This Is England 90. 3 television spin-offs of it, which are so hard-hitting, they're unbelievable.
Really,
and the acting in those is incredible. Oh, they're so good.
Wow.
The same cast. He keeps the cast together.
Oh, wow.
And the This Is England 90 is pretty cool because if you've ever grown up loving the Gavin Watson skinhead books, it kind of follows that in a way, to where they're all skinheads until like the rave scene comes onto the scene, and then they all start doing ecstasy and start raving, which is what the theme of all the photographs in the Gavin Watson skinhead books follow. Like, it shows them all as young skinheads, and then near the end they were like, we went to a rave and things changed. Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's mine. Number 3.
Shit, is it back to me?
Yep.
Let's see. Okay, I'm going with, there's a documentary, and I think actually someone told me once that it was a guy in San Diego that put this together, like a friend of a friend, or actually a guy that was like working at the shop, found out that I collected records, and he said that his friend put together these documentaries. It's called Records Collecting Dust, and I've seen them both. I can't remember the first one. I was brushing up on the second one recently for this.
It was Jason from Rat Size. Do you remember the band with Gabe from The Locust, which he sang in? Rat Size. They sounded very Black Flag, early Black Flag.
Okay.
Jason Blackmore, I think his name is. He was the guy behind these two.
Yeah. So super cool. I remember enjoying them both, but going back and looking at the second one today, like the cast of characters he got together is insane. You know, he got Paul Bearer on there. He got Choke, John Joseph, Richie Underdog, Brian Baker. Of course.
Okay. I've seen clips from that.
Yeah, he got Ian McKay, of course. He got Roger, and also Al Quint from Suburban Voice. Nice guy. Yeah, and so this is just really cool. It's just people talking about collecting records. Paul Bearer comes off like super sweet and really just like, you just really like him. And Roger, of course, like, you know, it's we've talked about it before, but you know, to be a AF fan and then like all the documentary stuff about him, you know, you just get to like him even more because it just comes through how much of a fan of music he is. And it's kind of fucked up because on this documentary, like they ask all these people this question. They're like, okay, if like your house is on fire and you can only get one record out, what would you take? And of course it's fucked up because Roger's like, well, it's funny you asked that because that actually happened to me. It's like, oh, fuck. You know what I mean?
Oh,
so anyway, but yeah, this is a really good documentary about record collecting, which is a part of this subculture, which we haven't really talked about that much, and no one really talks about that much anymore, outside of just telling people to buy stuff. But I think they do a really good job, and you know, for a relatively recent movie that went under the radar, people should hunt this down, if not just for the cast of characters, to support recent art and documentaries. So it's called Records Collecting.
If you collect records, it will just totally scratch that itch that you always feel, you know, and then you'll be jealous of a lot of the stuff that these people have.
That's true. Yeah, that's true. But also this stuff is like, if you're a fan of like these people, which of course you are, these are like the heavyweights of like the old school scene. It talks about them like, oh, what's the first record you got like when you were a kid, or how did you fall in love with music? So it does paint a bigger picture outside of just nerdy record collecting. They're not asking Choke like, all right, do you have every edition of this record? Like, do you got that on red? Do you got that on orange? You know, it's a little deeper than that.
Oh yeah, that would be terrible if they did that.
I mean, just Rogers, like all the Misfits 45s, you know.
Yeah.
Like it's just a trip to watch too.
So rad. So
yeah, very cool. That it's really well done too. Like, you know, it's definitely worth the watch.
Agreed.
It bounces around enough that you don't get, you know, bored. It does the cuts quick enough to move on to the next question, to the next person, so everyone's succinct and, you know, it's edited nicely.
Yeah. It also inspired the highest tier of my Patreons. The guy from the punk documentary that comes off well, because there's a lot of them on here. A lot of people sitting in nice chairs, looking chill and dapper for the documentary. That's the guy you want to be. Life goals. But all right, Greg, on to you.
Okay, so since this is my last one, remember I was no order, man.
Yeah,
well, you've got two left.
No, Suburbia and Bill from the Ferry, we both had those.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and I already did Repo Man and What's Up Rockers, so this is my last one out of my 5, and it's definitely going to be a controversial pick because a lot of people hated this, but I also think it showcases a nasty, ugly side to the scene sometimes with the violence.
Oh,
and I'm gonna.
I know where you're going. I'm
going to put Boston Beatdown in here because.
Oh.
As far. Okay, you guys weren't thinking I was going to say that.
No, the minute you started, I knew what you were going to say.
Yeah, and I think because as far as like just a controversial little film showcasing a certain scene, I think it had a crazy impact and a ripple effect. And I mean, you can absolutely argue that it had, you know, a negative impact throughout hardcore. Some people would say that it had a positive impact throughout the scene, but it definitely, I mean, depending on who you're talking to, or some people could, I mean, just the fact that I brought it up and how everyone's like reaction to it right now is why it's in my pick of 5, because it's such a jarring film and people either are like, yeah, I want to see all this shit. Like, this is crazy. Like, let's look at this. And then there are people that are like, I fucking absolutely despise this type of like scene and this behavior. And that's why it's in there, because in the grand scheme of punk and hardcore, which still to me needs to have an element of danger and to be shocking and jarring, this shows, you know, a particular group and a particular scene and band, which everyone who follows hardcore music knows exactly what I'm talking about. And I remember when this came out, and I think, like, you know, it kind of definitely bred a lot of, like, other types of dudes to be attracted to the music. I think it definitely showcased, like, oh, hey, you can, you know, use violence more, maybe. Like, I definitely saw an impact in this, you know, which a lot of people say was bad. And I think it's just pretty wild that a documentary like this showcasing a scene and a group of bands from their area and just like how their scene was and the type of guys that they were and what they were doing. And they kind of just filmed it themselves, like, hey, this is what we're about. and they released it, and it causes kind of a huge ripple effect of the scene, which, you know, having maybe people trying to have copycat behavior and immediately going like, I hate this, I hate this, I hate this. So that's why I'm putting it in, because I think it's a controversial film, and I think it showcases dare I say, it showcases what can be a very dark side to hardcore music. So that's why it's in there.
I thought you were going Romper Stomper.
Silent.
That's what. Also no, I said I thought you were going Romper Stomper. That's where I thought you were going with that.
Oh, fuck no. Well, I mean, that really is the best Skinhead movie of all time. But because they end up fighting over a girl.
Great sex scene. All right. I never saw those, to be honest with you. I don't know. I never saw the Boston Beatdowns, like outside of like the previews. Just no one in my circle ever had it, and I don't know. I don't know. Are they on YouTube?
I remember there was a DVD of it, and I remember seeing it, and I remember like with all those types of bands, and maybe within a younger generation, it was definitely like, whoa, this is the most craziest shit. Whoa, this is wild. Whoa, they're doing this. I mean, I might be way off base here with this pick, but I definitely think it had, an impact within the scene, or showcasing a different side that people would probably like frown upon or they hated it. I mean, if we're picking like E.G. Allen documentaries that are showcasing like dudes doing equally, I mean, that dude was a dirtbag for sure, certified. So, with this type of documentary showcasing how certain guys act or just doing what they do, like, I don't think I'm too off base in putting it in as far as like controversial film.
No, I can't comment because I haven't seen it.
I don't think you're going to be ostracized for choosing it. So I don't think it's anything like that. But I think it like you say, copycat behavior and things like that, it's caused a lot of damage across. But meatheads would be meatheads anyway, regardless. Not saying that like everyone involved in this is one, but
no, definitely not.
One thing that I'll say is like, a couple people doing things for the right reasons, and then everyone else just using it as an excuse to just fucking wreck shit. Like, they initially kicked all the Nazis out of their scene violently, and that's what the all of their self-proselytizing at the beginning of this video is. And then, it goes on to be like, oh, we're going to be filming a Boston Beatdown 3, so let's go completely ruin Posse Numbers and just beat everybody up at Posse Numbers to, like, get footage. Like, the things that it spawned, I just think are just not needed in hardcore. And it is very right of you to say that it is a controversial thing, because socially, like, does it have an impact to where this behavior starts happening because people have seen it elsewhere, like where it perhaps never would have laid down roots in certain scenes? I don't know. That's up for debate, but I personally like to go to shows to socialize with friends and see bands and hopefully not have to fight.
Oh yeah.
Is it an actual documentary, or is it just like fight beat up footage?
It's a bit of both. It's like a skate video of fighting with interspersed interviews and cloak and dagger mystery interviews of like, we do this, but it's a way of life type thing.
I totally forgot about the Mike Vallely DVD. You remember that?
Yeah, I mean, it's essentially that kind of thing where instead of skate clips, it's fight clips. There's this guy talking shit to us on the street outside of a bar, so we just smashed him to pieces, and we filmed it.
And that's why, as far as like a film of the subculture, showcasing, because we were seeing like you watch a film like Suburbia, and you're seeing violence, but it's like pretend, right? Or it's like he never stabs the dude.
Yeah.
Or any of that kind of stuff. And a lot of the other punk type movies or movies within this like are showing, or they like show these themes of like violence, or like, oh, the punks did this, or people in the subculture did this. Well, then here's like the documentary showing some like actual really crazy shit.
Yeah.
So, and you can, like I said, like I'm not taking a stand. I'm not saying like, oh, I think this is a great film and everyone should do what they're doing in the scene. I'm not saying that at all. But I'm just saying, as far as like a movie or type of some type of film that falls in the sphere of this subculture, I think it's definitely like at the top of the controversial pile. As far as like, which I wanted to have a controversial, like a movie with controversial things, because some people would say, to pick with G.G. Allen, there are people that fucking despise him. Like, they fucking hate him. They'll be like, fuck that dude. I don't even want to listen to him. He was like fucking racist. He did this. He did this, But you can kind of be like, oh, but they're characters and they're ridiculous, But in all intents and purposes, like, G.G. Allen was like a shitty dude, right?
Yeah, but what G.G. Allen's doing is pushing things to the extreme on an almost like performance artist level. I mean, being disgusting. You know what you're getting into if you're going up near the front. All of this stuff. What's happening in Boston Beatdown is it's just a clip show of smashing people, and I take your point completely that it's a controversy point in hardcore that a lot of people have seen, and it made ripples, but I don't see it being aesthetically put together well. I don't see it really bringing much to the culture except for exposing kind of what happens at hardcore shows, where grown men can come into a room and basically commit felonies, but because it's happening at a show, it's okay. Do you know what I mean? Whereas, like, if it was happening on the street, like, you could be arrested for whatever. Fights are always going to happen at shows, and that's the thing. It's just, I personally don't see the point of glorifying behavior like this.
Yeah, absolutely, and I think that's why,
Well, I think Greg's point is that it's not you're not necessarily glorifying it. It's just, it is a snapshot of time, right? So,
of course, I know Greg is not glorifying the behavior. I know Greg is putting it forward because it was a big moment in the time where it's like, hey, this is attached to our culture. What is your take on it?
Yeah, and I think another interesting thing too is I see so much like people always want to hear like about, I want to hear the fight story, or I want to hear about what happened at that, or I want to hear that because like, dude, gossip and hardcore is fucking so huge. It's such a huge part of the scene. It always has been a part of the scene. You can fucking pull out some old zine from like whatever, and people are complaining about, oh, this dude showed up and did this, or someone said this, or someone did that. Like, that's always been like, everyone always wants to like, talk about it or look about it or see about it, So I think this is kind of like, once again, why it's there. It's like, well, here it is. Like, here it is.
There's something in humans physiologically that when a fight breaks out, you're like, most people are going to be like, ooh, what's going on?
Yeah,
the same reason that kids all gather around other kids at school going, fight, 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 fight. There's something in us that makes us want to check these things out. When you're the Che Cafe or something and this is happening within your walls, you're not that psyched on it.
Oh, yeah.
I mean?
It's fucking terrible to deal with, and it's like, and that's why it's such a crazy, I think it has such a wild impact. Is to put out this idea for other people to try to follow, but then those people didn't really they were just attracted to just for the sake of violence and not maybe actually having a scene. So, like I said, controversial pick, but, hey, just the fact that, the conversation went this way, that, I know definitely people might have similar views, and I think it's, worth talking about. So.
Yeah, definitely. I just think there's so much better art out there.
Yeah, like What's Up Rockers, for sure.
Like Cinema Beer Goggles.
Like What's Up Rockers. I thought we could put a whole spectrum of films. Like we have Beer Goggles, which is if you just want to watch, I don't know.
If you want to circle pit in the living room.
88 Fingers Louie, and it's just a good time. To where we can go all the way to the extreme side where you're like, oh no.
Greg, if you saw that Guttermouth video, you would be so stoked on that backyard show they were having. You got to watch this. Anyway, Daniel, your last pick, I think?
No, I've got two left.
Okay, go ahead.
Instruments, the Fugazi documentary.
Cool.
And the crowd goes mild. I
think after my pick, I think it's so great that we're talking about a Fugazi documentary.
But you know what's great is the way that Guy handles dudes that want to mosh and get really rowdy at the show. When he points them out, he's like, "I saw you guys outside, cross-legged, eating ice cream. Now you want to come in here and be blah, blah, blah. You ice cream eating motherfuckers." He calls them out for being nice and well behaved outside of the show, but when they came in, they just started being dicks. And those are the same guys that, Craig always busts my shit about. Here's your $5 back, sir. It's just a rad part. But what's cool about it is it's shot in a really, the guy, Jem Cohen, had been, with them since the inception of the band and had traveled with them over a long, long period of time. So this was kind of something that was curated and not put out until basically the band had gone from being the start to where they went on hiatus, and then the film came out, essentially. And it's really artistically done. It doesn't, sometimes it might be a little bit hard to watch on the flow of it because it's making some artistic choices that sometimes you're like, oh, just play more songs or show more of this. But, there's some choices. But I think what it does is it shows how when you get four people that are right to be in a band together and they all give their all to it, what really can happen and how much you can achieve. And they've been to every continent on the planet playing. They've done everything, and it's all been hard work and no corners have been cut, and they've always made it affordable to go watch them. Granted, these things have happened because of how popular they are as well, but it just gives you a lot of respect, or at least I watch it and just give them, lots of respect because they don't cut corners, they don't do the easy thing, they don't take the money, they just work hard and stay very vigilant to their craft.
Yeah.
What year did that come out?
I don't know. Zach, do you have the computer with you?
Yeah, what's it called again?
Instrument. I think it might have come out around 2005, 2006 is my guess.
2001.
Oh, shit.
Is there I'm trying to think of it. I've seen some vids of Fugazi playing on YouTube, and there's a couple of live performances. Looks like they're playing a gym type feel. And it's really well professionally shot.
Yes, that's from the
No, just those two clips alone of like them playing and just the way I think what they kind of like put lyrics in between, right?
Yeah, and it has like it shows Guy like hanging upside down in the basketball hoop, like
yeah, no, that's
going
no, it's really it's definitely like you said, very like artistically well done. Like that's just I'm going off just like one video of them playing some song. I have no idea what it is, but you just like feel like you're totally there watching them.
Yeah, and they also show them playing with no like to prisoners in DC, I believe, and like people that necessarily have never heard of Fugazi, like being able to be up and like kind of moving and dancing to Fugazi in, you know, and almost like kind of mocking Fugazi because they're like, oh, this is crazy shit. Like, I don't know what this is. But just that thing, like, no, we want to go play to prisoners like that don't get this. And they're not like, you know, you can tell they're like not offended by being kind of clowned by the people who are watching them. They know that it's still doing good. If no one has seen this, I really recommend watching it. It's really good.
Well, yeah, everyone should go watch all the top fives.
Yeah, for sure.
All right, my last one, 1995 Slayer Live Intrusion. Start out with Raining Blood, end with Chemical Warfare, Can't Fuck Around, more punk than Fugazi, and that's that. You know?
Can we,
I've never seen it.
It's the closest thing to Decade of Aggression. I think Decade of Aggression came out in 91. This doesn't come out till 95, so it's kind of a bummer because obviously Seasons in the Abyss is way better than Divine Intervention. But what are you going to do? Anyway, I'm just kidding. My number one is Bad Religion Along the Way, the VHS. I think it came out in 90 or 91. And
is it the doc or is it just a collection of videos?
It's them playing a bunch of European shows like on the Suffer tour, I think, because they don't play anything off No Control or Against the Grain.
Generator.
No, none of that. So it's just Suffer and then the old stuff that's like on 8085. So on the first records, and it's just fucking awesome. It's Bad Religion right when they come back, you know, put out Suffer, which is one of my favorite, if not my favorite record of all time. And then doing all that old shit, and it sounds so good live. And then they do break it up with like little interviews, and it's kind of like it's pretty wild. You get everyone's personality like big time. Like Greg Hetson, they interview him, and they're like, so what do you like to do? And he's like, I like to play video games on my Nintendo. You know, Blades of Steel. You know, so his personality, and then you have like Mr. Brett just like looking super depressed, and he's like, I'm a drug addict. Like, I do heroin, you know? Like, I'm always going to be a drug addict. Like, I think he was clean then, but he's saying that, like, once you're a drug addict, like, that's just what you are. You know, like, you can fight it.
Gone through rehab once, so he's repeating all the things that you learn.
Yeah, and then you have, like, Greg, this very, you know, just intellectual to the bone.
An academic.
Yeah, total academic. And then, you know, Jay Bentley's just, like, a normal-ass dude. And I think it just does a good job of summing up their personalities. And then the footage is amazing. I think they're just like they're splicing together like I don't know, maybe 3 shows of like a European tour, maybe 5 shows, but like the editing is like basically the apex of what I like. You know, like they are jumping around from the camera angles and the shows, but it's not too abrasive. Like Greg and we talked because recently we were talking about doing this project before it got totally fucked by the coronavirus. We were talking about like doing a live series here for the pod of shooting bands, and we wanted to just do it on one camera because kind of a backlash to like I went and saw the last Slayer thing that they did in the theaters. Did you go see that, Daniel?
No.
It was like maddening. Like they don't keep a camera angle for like longer than like 2 seconds, and it's like you're just watching this.
Everyone who edits things now thinks our attention span is so fucking insane that we need to like see something new every second.
Yeah, and it's like fucking unwatchable. You know, it's like I'm not even getting a feel for like being there. It's like it's like you're on a roller coaster, you know, but in a bad way. Like it's like I can't tell what's going on. Like I want to watch and enjoy this. These are like my favorite songs, you know? And so like
I think that also comes too with like so much of this like quick editing is done to like pizzazz up footage or make footage look more exciting of maybe a performer or music that's not already like super fast already. So when you're watching like Slayer and the music itself is like so fast and gnarly, and like the band already has that crazy stage presence, it's like you don't really need to do, you know, all these like millions of quick edits in it. But I think, you know, it's such a new standard thing to where, and what Daniel says as far as attention spans go, you know, if you take this like whatever kind of basic pop singer now, it's kind of like the most boring, mediocre track. It's like you have to fucking go so many angles just to be somewhat entertaining. So I think it's more of like a stupid trend, and sadly, like some older bands kind of like fall victim to it.
Yeah, it's just absolutely terrible. So like the editing on this is just perfect. I love it. I love this thing. I've watched it more than pretty much any punk rock related thing. You know, I mean, I probably wore this thing out. And I absolutely love it. So the Bad Religion Along the Way VHS came out on Epitaph in 1991. And it's long, dude. 27 tracks. You know, when they only had like 2 LPs out. So they basically play like both LPs plus like the 7-inch and the Along the Way EP. So super sick. That's what I got.
And it's put out by Epitaph?
Yeah, Epitaph 91 on VHS. And I don't know if it ever got a DVD release or not. I never.
It's crazy because it's right in the time frame that I would have just been eating up anything that was punk, you know, and I haven't seen this one. Or at least I don't remember seeing it.
Yeah, you got to see it. It's so good. And it looks like it's on YouTube, the full thing.
Oh, cool.
So there's that.
That's everyone's 5, right?
No, I've got my final one, which was my number 2, which is 24-Hour Party People.
Okay, and what's that?
And
I've never seen that one.
You haven't seen it?
No.
Oh, you should both see this film. It's the story basically of Factory Records, but the way it's connected to punk so frequently, because there's this very famous story.
It's because Daniel has to do Fugazi number 2 and Joy Division number 1 every episode.
No, I just worked out that way.
Like, kill myself, dude.
Sex Pistols is going to be my number 1. But then Greg,
we're at 2 hours and 6 minutes. Let's go to the honorable mentions and get out of here.
No, I'm telling you about this film.
Okay.
So it's Steve Coogan plays Tony Wilson, who was, when I was growing up, I knew him as a newscaster. He was the local newscaster that did the more interesting stories. But in reality, he was one of the main brains behind Factory Records. But what happened was the Sex Pistols came to Manchester and played the Manchester Leicester Free Trade Hall as a show put on by the Buzzcocks, but they weren't ready to play yet. And there was probably about 40, 45 people in that room. And like almost everyone who was in the room to see the Sex Pistols the first time went off to do something. Like all the 3 people who were behind Factory Records did that. All 4 members of Joy Division were there. They went and did Joy Division. Morrissey was there, went off and did the Smiths. Marquis Smith was from the Fall, was there, went and did the Fall. So like this one like epicenter moment happened in Manchester that spawned like all these bands and all of this. Like Billy Duffy from the Cult was there, you know. So all of this stuff happened just because the Sex Pistols came and played Manchester. So it's kind of the story of that, how it starts, and then it goes through Factory Records. So it goes through the Joy Division is the first half of the film, and then Happy Mondays and like Manchester stuff is the second half of the film. and then the downfall of Factory, because Factory did a really interesting thing when they signed any bands. They said, you get half of what we make and we get half of what we make. And there are no contracts and you own everything. So as Factory started getting into financial trouble because they owned the Hacienda Club with New Order, basically all these labels came sniffing around and said, wait, there are no contracts? We don't have to buy them out? Okay, we'll just sign the bands outside of Factory, and Factory like imploded. But it's a really hilarious film, but it's really well done as well. And the guy that does the Ian Curtis part, I think, is better than the Ian Curtis from the Ian Curtis biopic, Control.
Cool.
And shout out to Joe Rivas, episode 1, for picking for representing Joy Division closer and not getting yelled at for mentioning Joy Division.
We was throwing that as an example of something you could pick for 1980. And that was an example. It's a wild card. No, that would have been a great wild card pick for 1980. It's a classic record. Love it.
So, anyway, go ahead. What we're going to say?
I'm going to check out this movie.
Honorable mention? Cool.
Yeah, honorable mention. So, one, I could have probably replaced RKL with this, is that recent documentary, The Agnostic Front, Godfathers of Hardcore. It was,
that is
so well done and so awesome. Just all the footage and just to have a band that epic to be able to do a great documentary and then have all that footage and have like relatively recent interviews and
the recreation of their old apartment, like dramatically, kind of was really cool as well.
Yeah, and then like the tie-in that was done by like the bass player Blood for Blood, so it's like you have like
Ian Harlan.
Yeah, so you have like a guy from an awesome band like this doing his own art that's like capturing this other artist that's awesome. So it just everything about it, I love it.
That one's terrific. The super high quality A7 footage as well.
Yes,
is like just awesome to see. Like because you always been able to see like really kind of low quality snippets of like the early NYHD scene, and just to see like really like amazing quality footage of like them, like the A7 club and them moshing and doing all that. It's awesome.
Yeah, showing each member at their own different moshing style and stuff is sick. If you want like that kind of New York hardcore kind of thing where you just better old footage showing up and like new angles, there's a newer documentary that I saw on Amazon Prime called The Chronicles of New York Hardcore.
I saw that. That's Drew Stone, who sings an Antidote now, but also
and the crossover years.
Yeah, he also directed. Wait, what did you say about crossover?
I said he sang an Antidote in the like full on metal years too.
Yeah. Oh, I thought you said. I thought you were like. I thought you took a shot at crossover right now, which I was because after hearing you have to squeeze in Joy Division here, and then I thought you took a shot at the best genre of music of all time.
And you said, "Hey, hold my beer goggles video. I'm going after it."
I'm glad that was. I'm glad.
Hold my beer tea.
I forget. Yeah, but anyway. And then also too. He directed the legendary Biohazard Punishment video as well. So.
Jesus, that's the apex. That's one of the greatest videos ever.
Yeah, absolutely. But also, and I think if we missed this Hall of Fame, the NFX documentary.
I talked to Daniel about it if we were going to have it in top 5, and apparently none of us did, so that's why it's not in the Hall of Fame. But it is as close as you can get, in my opinion.
Yeah,
I didn't. Oh, sorry. I didn't have it on my list because I assumed one of you two would. And also, it's pretty awesome, but GB is so sad on it.
Yeah, I would say that's what holds it back is like, as a GB super fan watching that video and it's like, well, sick of it all, fucking smashes. AF, fucking smashes. All the interviews, totally classic. Go to see GB, total fucking bummer. And so maybe that keeps it out of the Hall of Fame, that it smashes any idea that you think that like GB would be amazing.
Well, I think that's what's cool about it, because without this, let's say you didn't have such a crazy pro shot of these three bands in '91, right? And you've already given GB the legendary status, right? And then you kind of see them playing a big bill, and you see them have a dud set. I think it's kind of like cool and an actual like accurate showing of like, you look at an old flyer of a show, right, with all these gnarly bands, and you think, dude, this show must have been so fucking crazy. Like, it must have been like everything I wanted it to be, right? And then you kind of look at it and you can be like, oh damn, that band is kind of a dud.
Yeah. Well, it's like the death rattle of GB. They're like basically breaking up right around that time, and Civ is only a year later. And in this video, Civ has, is wearing creepers and shit. So, like, it's, moving on to that thing.
But I gotta say, dude, that song, "The Distance," oh man, I love it. And and it sounds so good to hear Civ sing it. I know it's on the Moondog 7-inch, and I like it when Walter sings it too. But I like Civ's voice more. So
agreed.
But
the best part on the whole video is, what's New York hardcore? It's me and him.
Mm-hmm.
That Jimmy Harley interview.
And Jimmy's got like the coolest like Budweiser like long crew neck or something.
Yeah, I think it's like crew neck. It was so good. Yeah, I mean Jimmy comes off so good. It's like he just feels like your friend,
Mm-hmm.
So,
but highlight is AF playing Crucified and the two dudes marching out with the American flag, and then Stigma dropping to one knee and doing the sign of the cross.
Yes.
Like it's like, who needs to watch the fucking TV footage? Like, it's like, you don't need to watch that shit. Like, you just saw the best thing ever.
It's so good. So good.
And then they're all in like fatigues and boots and like march 3 feet forward, like big riff, 3 feet back, 3 feet. They're so sick.
Absolute force, the fucking force to be reckoned with.
Yeah, so good. I wanted to also mention the BYO documentary, Let 'Em Know, is really
so good.
Is really, really good. The Descendants documentary was very, very good.
The BYO doc, Rob and I drove up from San Diego to the premiere at the same, like, that Nike theater where Chromax played for the Radio Silence show. And they aired it, and just everyone was there, and people, like, were going up to the people they'd seen in Another State of Mind, like, almost as they were, like, rock stars, like, oh my God, you're the person who made this comment, Like your girl Becca was getting tons of attention of everyone, like, oh my God, it's you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's so cool. Yeah, that documentary was great, and I haven't heard that many people talk about it. So everyone should check that out. It's called Let 'Em Know. It's the story of BYO. And also Youth Brigade. The Descendants, the Film Age documentary from 2013. It's really good.
Yeah, that one's really, really good too.
Yeah. Just flying through these. The Fat Wreck one from 2016 I thought was good. Give Me Danger. You didn't like it?
Really don't like. No, I think it's done well. And I think No Use for a Name and Propaganda come off really well.
And I like Good Riddance.
Some of the other bands. And some of the other bands that I don't even care for come off well, but Fat Mike's such a douche.
Yeah. I don't know. He's not my favorite interview. But I'd love to have him on the pod. Got to get him someday. I did email Fat, and they never got back to me. So stop big leaguing me. That's all. The Ramones documentary, We're Out of Here. I enjoy that one a lot. There are a bunch of Ramones ones, End of the Century, but I think that We're Out of Here one is completely exceptional.
I've got a couple honorable mentions.
You got Salad Days for sure.
Yeah, Salad Days is really good. As is, I prefer the Bad Brains one rather than the Looking for HR one.
The Bad Brains one's good. I love when Ian actually confronts him about like, the homophobia stuff.
Yeah,
and he's like, "Whoa, they kind of had a point."
Yeah.
And his response is just kind of like, "Yeah, I'm not saying it was." I mean, he pretty much just like it is what it is. We're kind of like,
it's kind of, you know what it was like back then, and Ian's like, "No, we weren't like that. No one should have been like that."
Yeah. That's probably my favorite Ian moment. Other than the 7 inches.
The iced tea is the it's the best.
Yeah. Also, shout out to the In Control documentary done by me.
Oh yeah.
Jesus, that's my number one.
Can that get digitized, please?
Nah. Yeah. If someone knows how to digitize, I'll give you a DVD and someone can do it. My computers don't even have like a CD drive anymore, so
that needs to be. I mean, come on, Amish dude, let's slam. I mean, that's.
I need to see it again. I had a VHS copy of it.
Yeah.
One of one, handwritten by Zach.
Yeah, I'll have to. I'll figure out how to digitize it. We'll do that.
Another good one, the Punk Singer about Kathleen Hanna Bikini Kill. Really good documentary.
Cool.
Have you guys seen that?
Nope. I'm sure.
I actually watched that with my girlfriend, and that was a good documentary.
Yeah, it's really good. And
that is cool. I had no idea she had Lyme disease.
Yeah,
which was kind of. I mean, and that was like my first real kind of introduction to that band, and like seeing all that. So yeah, it's definitely a doc worth watching.
They say that it's good to have possums. Some people don't like them. I enjoy them. I think they're so ugly they're cute, but they actually they eat ticks, and they're saying that the average possum will eat like a couple thousand ticks every year. So you got to get more possums in the world so we can put it into Lyme disease.
So now you can say awesome possum.
Yeah, with how many other words have a silent O?
There's one documentary that's not been mentioned yet that was so close to being in my top 5 but just missed out, is The Future is Unwritten, also done by Julian Temple, but it's about Joe Strummer and the Clash.
Oh yeah, that would be good. I gotta watch that too. And
I've been meaning to watch that for a while.
Oh, it's really good.
I also never saw the one about the.
Really good.
I never saw the one about the proto punk band Death. I heard that one was super good.
Yeah, that's a good.
That one's pretty cool.
Yeah, and did you watch the documentary about the metal band Death though? That one's great.
Yeah.
Yes,
There's also
there's lots of good heavy metal.
A newer doc on East Bay Punk that's really good too.
Oh yeah, I watched that one. That one's great. I love that one.
Yeah. Yeah,
they did such a good job on that. Like I felt like it got most of it. I saw. And you know what? Go ahead.
You know what other documentary's quite good is the Jawbreaker one. But what's great about it is it makes you just think they're just a band that can't get along near the end, and it shows their hypocrisy, which is awesome that they were very honest with it and let it all be shown.
Yeah, that documentary is great. I also saw one recently, a Bakersfield punk rock documentary. That was kind of cool.
Was it all about Jerry's?
Yeah, a lot of it was about Jerry's, and then they actually had a little section about Tehachapi hardcore. So
sick.
Yeah, kind of cool. So if people can hunt that down, I can't remember what it was. I came across it and watched it, and it was okay. It was just interesting because, with talking about Oxnard so much, Bakersfield is kind of a similar town, just without a beach, and and so they kind of it's kind of the same idea, a town that's like an hour or so out of LA, and and just like on a total different like wavelength, you know. So it was kind of neat.
Find the name of that, let me know, because I is Die Hard Youth featured?
No, they interview Andy for like maybe 15 seconds. It's a very brief thing on Tatchby, but it's the cool thing about that is just that it goes to show that they're making the effort to include everything, and it's a documentary that's like and it's starting in like 82 or whenever like their punk scene started, you know. So like for them to acknowledge that, which wouldn't have been until the year 2099, that's kind of interesting.
It's kind of like that San Diego documentary that talks, a lot about Rocket and Jehu and stuff, and they give Unbroken a 30-second to a minute part near the end just to say, like, well, we have to mention, this, even though it's more about the Casbah scene of the 90s.
Yeah, you got to mention it, or it like takes away from the authenticity of your documentary.
Yeah.
So, all right, we're at 2:24, so let's wrap it.
All right. Well, I'll just close it out. UK 82. I forgot to mention that one just for the footage of Chaos UK playing No Security.
Fuck yeah.
The documentary that said our subculture died in 86, and was like, it, to sum up the documentary, I think it was like, in a common Twitter phrase, like, oh no, you were doing so good. No, why did you do that? Like, that documentary completely does that, because you're like, yeah, it's just sick. Oh, wait a minute, everything I like that is dead apparently, and I shouldn't exist then. So fuck.
Yeah, the wild thing about that too is like, so when he did the book before he did the documentary, we actually played. He went on tour, did a book tour, and we played a show. I think I just posted on Instagram recently. We played up in Seattle, and Igatrol opened the show. Then he did like a slideshow of the book, and then Stay Gold played, and that was the show. And it's like, I don't know. I think that I was just on tour and having a really good time, because like one of my biggest like regrets is like not throwing him in a trash can that night when I think about it, because like we like collectively as a scene, it should have been a mob of people like picking him up and chucking him into a dumpster, because it's like the gall of this guy to have like the point of his shit be that hardcore died in 86. And then in the year 2002 or 2003, you're pitching your book at a fucking hardcore show.
Yeah.
It's like,
well, real.
Like,
then just go do it at a bookstore. Like, why are you doing it at a hardcore show when you say that the shit died like 15 years ago?
And that's just what sucks, because the documentary, like, it is good.
I know.
Like,
I know.
It's fucking awesome. And then you get to the end, and it's just like go home, and you're like, yeah, fuck this. Like,
yeah.
You know what's funny about when it aired at the Hillcrest Cinema in San Diego? Like, the opening night was just full of like just hardcore kids, like crazy. And Curtis from Tang is in the film, and he's also was at the theater. And like when he came up on screen, it might have been Ben, I'm not sure, but someone yells out, because he's got all his records behind him, like he's being filmed at Tang, and someone yells out, "Look at all those overpressed records!" Wow.
Yeah, talking about this too, there's another documentary that offends me so much, is that Tower Records documentary. And it was just like, yeah, it's so offensive, because like they make it seem like record stores lived and died with Tower. And it's like, no, dude, like you're kind of like the first like mega store. And then you got out mega'd and got pushed out, and it didn't die with you. There's still like a shit ton of record stores, and they're struggling. They're still like keeping the same vision, like pushing music, and like they give no shout outs at all to like the people still doing it. It's like, oh, end of an era, Tower's gone. And it's like, fuck you guys, Like,
I mean, I took it more as like it was end of an era when that one on Sunset that they kind of based a lot of the story from, and most of the staff of the Talking Heads in the thing. I didn't take it as much like the way you did, but I suppose if I watched it again, I could definitely see that.
Well, it's like they're taking over the world at some point, you know? Like they're just a big mega store, like moving in everywhere, you know?
Yeah.
Like you just go to Tower, like they got everything. Like I assume that they put out some smaller stores, you know? And then
probably,
you know, and then to like cry the victim because you managed your business so poorly and like times changed and you didn't adapt. Like, cry me a fucking river.
You're allowing all your employees to do coke on the clock.
It's just, I don't know. It's pretty offensive that like they could have at least like silver lininged it at the very end and been like, you know, Tower went out, but there's a shit ton of like local record stores still doing it, so you should go out and support them. You know, to have them not like end on a note like that was just like kind of offensive, I thought.
So. Yeah, I missed Tower for the simple fact that they're open on Christmas Day. And it was like, you know, I don't want to be around my dad. He's driving me fucking nuts. I'm just going to go to Tower and go in the magazine section for 10 hours.
Oh, I know. They used to get like, when I used to be weighing MMA, especially the stuff out of Japan, like they would get like Full Contact Fighter. They get all the good shit. So, I mean, whatever. Anyway, we're at 2:30. Let's wrap this up. Thanks for doing this, guys. Appreciate it. And you guys can take it out. Let's get at least one of those suicidals on this shit.
The only thing.
What?
I have no idea what you're playing.
Oh, you can't hear it?
I can't.
It's in control.
It.
Oh, that was
all I hear.
That was the outro. You just can't hear it.
Oh.
You can't hear. You must not be able to hear the box because you're just hearing me on the phone.
No, my phone's on speaker, and it sounded like I was just put on like hold with the shittiest like overly.
Oh, my riff is shit. I was put on hold with the shittiest hardcore riff.
Damn. I couldn't even tell what it was. It was just like.
Yeah. Well, anyway. All right.
Well, you were supposed to do the suicidal laugh over it.
But anyway.
Well, here, because I'm gonna hang up after this. And this is my closing statement, and then I'm out. I'm cutting it.
Okay.
The dudes that say hardcore died in '86 are hanging out at the Casbah, and that is the epitome of Casbah culture.
All right, guys. We'll see you next time.
All right. See ya.